A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus proposed another parable to the crowd, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have all the weeds come from?' And he answered, 'An enemy has done this.' His slaves said to him, 'Do you want us to go and pull them up?' And he replied, 'No, if you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest, and then at harvest time I will say to the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them into bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn.' He proposed another parable to them. 'The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a person took and sowed in a field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, yet when full grown is the largest of plants. It becomes a large bush, and the birds of the sky come to dwell in its branches.' He spoke to them in another parable. 'The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of wheat flour until the whole batch was leavened.' All these things Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables. He spoke to them only in parables to fulfill what has been said through the prophet. 'I will open my mouth in parables. I will announce what has lain hidden from the foundation of the world.' Then, dismissing the crowds, he went into the house. His disciples approached him and said, 'Explain to us the parable of the weed in the fields.' He said in reply, 'He who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is at the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all who cause others to sin and all evildoers. They will throw them into the fiery furnace, where there be wailing and grinding of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears ought to hear.'" The gospel of the Lord. Many people think that teaching others the good news is the work of theologians and Bible scholars. But in today's gospel, Jesus uses easily recognizable symbols of weeds and wheat, mustard seeds and yeast to teach his followers about the kingdom of heaven. Who are the best teachers you ever had? What tools did they use in their teaching? We live in a world that includes good and bad, the easy and the difficult, the sinners and the saints. Our call is to remain true to who we are as daughters and sons of God. Signs of Christ to the world and bearers of good news of Jesus Christ, to whom all we meet. A cup of coffee, a visit to the nursing home, a fishing trip, a play date, a neighborhood picnic. All these are opportunities to share the good news of the kingdom of heaven. Every day, this news is shared through acts of thoughtfulness, the gift of time, around the kitchen table, and many other ways and places. Using the imagery of weeds and wheat growing together until the harvest time, Jesus affirms that the kingdom of heaven contains both saints and sinners. The determination will be made by God alone at the end time. In the meantime, patience, tolerance, and forbearance are needed. The challenge is to live together, influencing others for the better. Matthew is warning his community about the need to be prepared for the final judgment when the Son of Man will come. Then the devil will be conquered. This is a different emphasis from what Jesus himself made, but it is a valid one. These stories allow for more than one meaning. Know your followers. Jesus had many followers and knew them. He knew what symbols and stories would speak to their experiences and what would be hard for them to comprehend. Who are your followers? Who are the ones who watch and listen to you at home, at work, at school, on your team, and in your neighborhood? Who are the ones in the other parts of the world who look to you for prayer, support, and encouragement? Choose and use the tools that will speak to them. Jesus, the master teacher, was a wonderful storyteller. His parables caught people's attention because his stories highlighted things that were part of their everyday lives. The best teachers know what will catch their students' attention: a favorite song, an online game, sports legend, or a movie hero, a Starbucks coffee, news of the day, a beautiful quilt, a new rod and reel, or a shared interest in gardening. This reminds me of my second grade catechism teacher, Miss Antietam. She had bought 2 prizes, one for a boy and one for a girl. She wanted the class to make a booklet of the 10 Commandments, 1 per page. The commandment was to be typed at the top of the page with a brief description of what it meant to us, with a picture relating to the commandment at the bottom of the page. We would cut it out of a magazine to show the meaning of each of the 10 Commandments. The best booklet by the boy won a 4-way cross on a chain, and the best by the girl won a rosary. This helped each of us to learn the 10 Commandments in order. I used this lesson throughout my life when doing an examination of conscience prior to going to reconciliation. God has given each of us, from the youngest to the oldest, gifts and talents to use in sharing the good news. Proclaim the kingdom of heaven by example. Today's first reading speaks of God who is just, lenient, merciful, and kind. It describes a God who gives hope to his children. We are extending those gifts to others, to our followers. Do we offer mercy instead of retaliation? Hope instead of gloom? When we do, we point the way to the kingdom of heaven. This reminds me of another story when I was in formation of the diaconate. We had a class in pastoral training. We had to do pastoral care at an assigned venue of either a hospital, a nursing home, or the jail. My assignment was a nursing home. We couldn't ask for a list for all the Catholics. We had to visit everyone in the nursing home. I would go and spend approximately 2 to 3 hours a week visiting residents of the nursing home. I knocked on the door of one of the residents and told her I was a chaplain assigned to the nursing home. I also told her that I was a deacon candidate for the Catholic Church. She stated, "I am not a Catholic, I am a Baptist." And I told her it doesn't matter, we are all Christians and believe in the same God. She asked me if I knew the 10 Commandments, putting me to a test, which I said in the order that I learned them as a Catholic. They have a slightly different order of the 10 Commandments, but basically the same contents. She asked me a few different things if they were sins, and I would tell her yes, and which commandment it pertained to. After passing her test, she told me to sit down. After a couple of those questions in the 10 Commandments, we had a really good conversation, and she told me to come back anytime and visit, which really made me feel uplifted. It had a profound effect on the rest of my diaconate formation, which I can thank my catechism teacher for. Both of these parables offer insight to the growth process of the kingdom of heaven. The mustard seed and the yeast imagery focus on smallness. Once the mustard seed is activated by being sown in the ground, and the yeast by being mixed with 3 measures of wheat flour, then transformation from very small to very large takes place. This message is meant to encourage Christians who see themselves as small and powerless in the face of the great Roman Empire. The followers of Jesus need to be reminded of the kingdom of heaven is only partially fulfilled in the here and now. There is much more to come. Jesus spoke all of these things in parables. Parable was the form of choice Jesus employed in his teaching. On the surface, the parable appears very simple. Below the surface, it is very profound. The deeper level can only be reached through faith. St. Francis of Assisi said, "Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words." I'll repeat that. Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. What does this mean? It means to preach the gospel by the way you live your life. Be a Christian example to others by the way you live your life. Jesus, the master teacher, gave us the gift of his body and blood, that we might know the fulfillment of God's mercy and love, sharing one day in the great banquet in the kingdom of heaven.